be alive and spirit-led, not just something we have as a perfect framework, but you want to be listening and moving with the Spirit to respond to what comes next.
I think evangelization is so important because it is the catalyst for faith.
All of our active ministry, all of the work we do with evangelization and discipleship, it always has to come from our own relationship with Jesus.
One of my big things, I believe, is bring him to Jesus and then just get the heck out of the way.
Evangelization is when I, as a parent, I'm probably the least qualified here, but...
Hello and welcome to this very special coverage from Shalom World of the 2025 Ignite Conference in Brisbane. We are on the magnificent main stage here. All of the delegates are out at their workshops at the moment, and this is a great opportunity to meet some of the guest speakers and some of the coordinators of Ignite Conference. Guys, thank you so much for actually being here with us today. I'm Sam Clear, and I'm going to start on the other side. Can I ask each person, each guest, to introduce yourselves and the mission that you are involved with?
My name is Brendan Malone. For those who don't know me, I've been in full-time pro-life marriage and family ministry in New Zealand and also now regularly in Australia for almost 21 years now.
And you can always pick a New Zealander in Brisbane, board shorts.
Yeah,
very appropriate.
I wasn't going to say anything, and I don't think anybody noticed until you pointed it out, Sam, but thank you anyway.
Thanks, Brendan. Kim?
My name's Kim Keady. I'm the director of Ignite Youth, and my mission is renewing the church for Jesus.
Beautiful. Amazing.
My name is Father Rob Galea. I'm a priest from the Sandhurst Diocese, but also executive director at ICON Ministry, which is an evangelization ministry through media and also going to schools and in a live capacity.
Beautiful.
Here.
Wonderful to see you again, Father Rob.
My name is Sam Brebner. I'm the manager of Ministries to young people for the Diocese of Auckland in New Zealand.
Brilliant. Beautiful. And beside me, Renee.
Hello, I am Renee Doyle. I work for Net Ministries, Australia and New Zealand. I'm the Leadership Development Director and serve on the leadership team there. And that's what we do.
Wonderful. And whilst I am interviewing you today, I also work full-time in youth ministry. So the interviewing isn't going to be coming from the position of someone who has no idea what you do. We'd like to poke and prod a little bit into evangelization and why that is so important in our everyday walk within the church. So my first question is, why is evangelization so important? Is it simply something that's on the peripheral that is for some, or is evangelization something that everyone is called to? And can I actually start with Kim? Why is evangelization so important?
I think evangelization is so important because it is the catalyst for faith. When we're thinking about evangelizing young people, we think about the encounter experience and we think about the formation experience. And so at Ignite Conference, it really is the culmination of both. It needs to start with an encounter. You can't grow a young person just based on fun times. It's got to be, have you encountered Jesus yet? So I think it really is the foundation of everything that we do. We say real world evangelization, which means that we are trying to do current culture, not changing the timeless message of the gospel, but bringing it into something that is real world, current culture, speaking the language of this generation of young people.
How do you do that? How do you, all five of you are coming at this from slightly different perspectives, but by the same token, you're on the same team. How do you bring youth specifically to an encounter with Christ, with Jesus? How do you do that?
Well, I'll just say this, that we can't give what we don't have, okay? So first of all, it is a generation that needs to see faith in action. Faith which is caught, not taught. We are not here. Evangelization, first of all, begins at home, okay? It doesn't begin here. Evangelization is when I, as a parent, I'm probably the least qualified here, but as a parent, a child would see their mum, their dad on their knees praying. That is the first evangelization, the first argument you have with your mother-in-law, or whatever. And then you learn to forgive. That is the greatest evangelization. And then that starts to make sense. The faith that the parents have, eventually through experiences like this at Ignite, there's the shift from the faith that they already have, but doesn't belong to them. It belongs to their parents. And then all of a sudden they start to own it. They say, okay, this makes sense. I start to internalize it. It makes sense for me. I'm going to live out what my parents lived out before me differently because I'm a different generation. But it is in places like this where it is actually caught. It's contagious. And it's caught and transferred by the speakers, yes, but mostly by their peers around them. They have the permission to internalize it. And this is what the powerful thing that a conference like this can offer.
And how do you, outside of a conference like this, how do you do that, Father Rob, with the families that you minister to at a parish level?
Well, I think one important thing is for parents not to be afraid to struggle in front of their children when it comes to faith, when it comes to life issues. Look, there's this study that came out in Sydney Archdiocese, where they did a study for many years. Why do you send your children to Catholic schools? And every time it is because of good education, because of discipline, because of this, because of that. This year was the first time they got the answer that they got, and it was because of faith. Because of faith. Never has there been that answer before. Why? Because parents now are out of their depth. They don't know how to give faith to their children. Because they think they need all of the theological answers. They think they need everything. They need to have a perfect life. But that's not what our young people need. Our young people need the struggle. They need the doubt. They need the resolution. They need to see that even through the doubt, through the struggle, I'm turning to God. And I don't have all of the answers, but I know someone who does.
For a lot of you sitting here on this panel right now, working with students in the schools is a big part of what you are doing. So I might begin with you, Renee, and then perhaps we'll go around to Sam and to Brendan over here. And actually, Kim, you can probably tie into this as well. But Renee, in a very significant way, this is your mission here. Yeah. How do you undertake it, and how do you go about inviting students into that relationship with Jesus to encounter?
Yeah, beautiful. And I think Father Rob kind of leaned in there of that. We're really passionate about peer with peer. I think there's something about young people. You know, our young people mostly are in the ages between 18 and 25. So when they're going into schools and working with students, the students can look at them and go, you look like me, you sound like me, you talk like me. You know, there's, for all intents and purposes, you're very familiar, and yet there's something different about you. You are living this different life, and they're very drawn to that. There's something really I say it's almost magnetic about that. And of course, it's their faith. It's Jesus just kind of shining out of them. And we often start there of not trying to necessarily dive straight in straight away, but just building relationship, just coming alongside them, making space, hearing their story, you know, and peer with peer says, I'm here to share something, but I also want to hear your story too. You know, you have something to offer too, and creating that space and placing that value. So we place a lot of emphasis on just building that relationship, building that trust with young people. And you're kind of maybe that first positive bridge to faith, the first time they've ever thought, wow, this could be something that's possible for me in my life.
Sam?
Yes.
How do you go about this in your ministry at the moment?
Yeah, well, I think a big part of it is, you know, for the young people that already have faith, it's about letting them know that they should be the ones to share it. You know, you talk about the quiet person on the team who you think, oh, well, maybe they're not the ideal evangelist, but actually for a certain young person that's also quiet, they are. I think for young people that already have faith and want to share it, often their biggest barrier can be feeling like they don't know how, you know, like they need a degree in theology or the ability to quote St. Augustine to
or
do
be
it.
a brilliant musician.
Yes,
on stage.
yeah. But I think just to let them know that they can do it in their words, that, you know, it can be as simple as like, oh, mate, youth group's one of the favourite parts of my week. Like, why don't you come along with me? I think that's one of the best ways to make it happen.
Yeah, fantastic. And Brendan, you actually fit very well into this mould of what I'm speaking about, because I look at what you do and I hear you speak and I think, I can't do that. But I'll be honest, I'm quite happy with that now to say I don't have to do what Brendan does. I'm really happy Brendan does what Brendan does. Would you mind explaining to everyone what you do?
Well, my contribution, I'd say, is I think, nothing here I disagree with, but I think authenticity is essential. It's absolutely essential. I remember the late Pope Benedict talked about the fact that without testimony, there is no sort of entry into conversion. There is a rich tradition a great patrimony that we are connected with. And you definitely get that at Ignite. And you hear all these testimonies, and I think they're a gateway into something. And so I think for me, authenticity is big. And in my ministry, one of the things I consistently experience is young people who are seeking real answers to tough questions. And I think probably far too often we've maybe tried to push those to the side, thinking it's too controversial, it's too hard. And that's really, that has been a failure of mission. We need to engage well with charity, with love. And I think what we're seeing now culturally, particularly in the West, is a real, there's a sort of revolution going on, if you like, people who genuinely are looking for those and responding to that. One of my big things, I believe, is bring them to Jesus and then just get the heck out of the way. And if I can do that, if I can leave that seed with you, if I can, I'm at an event where I can get in front of the Blessed Sacrament, like what's going to happen here later tonight, then I just get out of the way and God does everything else. I'm just a frail, humble vessel and I try not to stuff it up, basically. That's what I do.
Brilliant.
Can I just put in a word here? Because I think it's fair for those who want to work with young people, but are not young and they're not peers. There's something to go, there's a word for those who, especially this generation, like the X generation, the Y generation, the Z generation, and the Alpha. Okay, let's talk about the Z and the Alpha. Who are they listening to? Who do they spend most of their time listening to? There was a time where they used to listen to their peers a lot, but now they're listening to the Joe Rogans, they're listening to the Jordan Petersons, they're listening to people who are much older, the Gary V's, the people who are much older than them. Why? Because in a world where they are constantly surrounded by their peers and they're influenced by their peers, they also need to know. They need wisdom, they need guidance, they need people who have been through it and got out of the other side with success. So this is especially for the listeners, like people who are watching and feeling, okay, that's good for you, they're with young people. I'm not a young person, I want to work with young people. As a parent, my children are not listening to you. Actually, yes, your children are listening to you more than you think. Yeah. And they're listening to your generation more than you think. So don't underestimate. Also, there's the power in peers, and there's this is so important. It's going to close the deal, but the formation, the discipleship, the wisdom is going to come from an older generation.
Can I add to that too? One of the best pieces of advice that we ever got as parents was take your kids on mission with you whenever you can. And we've tried to do that, and I've watched as they've grown into that. So it's not like we're looking for experts to tell them how to do it. We're like, we'll give this a go, come with us. And it's funny how they've started to discover that for basic fundamental thing, like you're saying, Father, if my parents have got a calling, maybe I've got one too,
But the church needs every generation to be on mission, to be on evangelizing the world. This, we have a saying in our household, which is this generation of believers is responsible for this generation of souls. So it's our responsibility to evangelize everyone on the planet the same time as us. And so that is not just young people. It is also, it's the whole family. It's a family on mission, and it means that every generation is needed. Every literal generation, Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, is needed. A family needs the parents, they need the siblings, they need the grandparents, they need the aunties, they need everyone to play their part. And I think it's exactly the same with the church. I mean, I remember when I was a young person, I was looking to whoever was ahead of me and thinking, if you can get through that problem, then maybe I can as well. And so I felt inspired by those people. And so I think they do need what you're saying, the authentic life witness.
Well, and a factor in that surely is the breakdown of community, because to be a witness, you've got to be with other people across the spectrum. Yeah. And often we live in a very individualistic, consumer-driven culture. And I think that has been, certainly my youth ministry experience, looking back on some decades past, and I think I made a few mistakes probably treating it almost like this was just a demographic. These young people, we'd fit them into this narrow bandwidth, we'd sell them a product effectively, and failing to recognise that they actually need to be in the community, the family of God, to see that witness.
Yeah.
We pick this apart a little bit deeper. From the five of you, what do you feel are the largest cultural issues that we face when evangelising? You've already named a couple of them here, so I just want to go a little bit further. If anyone else has anything to add that you feel are particularly within our context within Australia and New Zealand, what are the areas?
I think one of the things that I find with our young people is unproven truth, opinion, subjectivity. There is so much subjectivity, and with that, so much division and so much hate for truth or the lack of it. And it's just people, even if they know it is true, they're afraid to believe it because they're going to get persecuted for it. Anything that is black and white is frowned upon, is seen as evil, is seen as bigoted, it's seen as closed-minded. And our young people are dying for it. They're dying in this subjectivity. And when Jesus, his word is black and white, it's black and white, it's there. And it's clear. And so when people come, they come wholeheartedly, because finally I can embrace the truth. Finally I can find freedom in this truth. But it's a thick glass to break through. It's a thick ice to come through, to come from a place of subjectivity to allowing our young people to realize that where they're inundated and told that you can't, there's no such thing as black and white, then all of a sudden they're presented with the truth of Christ. It is liberating, to say the least, for our young people. But it's really hard to get there.
It's a beautiful answer in that it cuts across digital media, secularism, so many different areas, even breakdown of the family. Yeah. As you're saying, that it would be so subjective. So what's working? How do you tackle this? What is actually working? What are you finding is bringing great hope and joy, inquisitiveness, perhaps even?
Well, I think my sense is for a while the church needs to recover its boldness in speaking about, and just being not afraid. And we are being proved time and time again. Basically, nature abhors a vacuum. And so do human societies. And if the church doesn't step in,
that, please?
Nature abhors a vacuum. It's a principle of physics. But it's true of human society. If you don't step in, the church doesn't step in and fill the vacuum with truth, then all the subjectivity and all the lies, you'll have Andrew Tates and the likes who'll step in and say, I'll go to gospel for you. Yeah. And one of the things I think was interesting a few years ago was, regardless of what you feel about the man, I think Jordan Peterson kind of proved that lots of young people were ready for a hard, challenging, objective truth. And my sense was that was our space. The church really should have been in that space a lot stronger. So what I see working is where there is that courage, and that courage coupled with love. And I can think of lots of different examples of that. But for me, the key is I go back to that principle Jesus enunciates in the gospel when he says, if you cast a demon out of a house and leave it empty, 7 more come along and fill it up. So don't just reject evil, fill your house with goodness, truth and beauty. And what is that goodness, truth and beauty? The big yes that we are presenting to our culture that animates the smaller no that we'd say to certain things.
Wonderful. Renee.
Yeah, and I think in the midst of this, we can get dragged down of kind of what's, I know you're asking what's working, and we can kind of see the obstacles, but actually what we're seeing is that this is a very open generation, and that works in both ways. They're open in that they're more open to different things, but they're also very curious about faith, and it's less of a barrier, at least in what we've seen, than it used to be. And I think engaging in that dialogue and again, coming and I guess that invitation still continues. We're seeing it here at Ignite. Everything's an invitation to come into that relationship. Everything's an invitation to, even have prayer in your life. And I think there is an openness and I dare say a hunger in young people, again, for that authenticity. But they forever know that there's something more, and we are seeing, at least we're kind of witnessing that in my work, is there is an openness and a hunger, and they're really curious. And I think it's a beautiful time. So I think at the same time to feel encouraged in evangelization, that people are asking questions and they're wanting to know more, and there is a sense of openness too.
Anything that's happened this year, something quite tangible where you have seen a person or maybe a group of people change? What are you seeing? Is there anything that you can think of just from this year alone?
Controversial or not controversial, since Charlie Kirk got killed, we've had more young people come to our church and knock on our doors because they have seen someone who was bold, who was black and white. Whether they agree or not, they want the boldness and they want to come back. I can three young people over the last weeks I know of that have decided to come to church because of that man. I don't know what it is, but I think when people see a prophetic voice, whether they agree with or not, understand or not, whether they they're tired of mediocrity, they're tired of diluted religion. They want something real. They want something that they can live for, and also something that they can die for. And this is what the church can offer. And this is what I'm seeing, people knocking on our doors, strangely, even from a situation like that.
Well, it's incredible. How do we overcome those obstacles, those moments of fear, the moments of apprehension, the moments of self-doubt, even perhaps the moments of pride that creep in? How do we tackle them? How have you found them personally to tackle them, to come back to basics?
I've got a favourite quote from Cardinal John Henry Newman, that is sitting on my wall in my office. And he said, a man would do nothing at all if he waited until he could do it perfectly. And that's, you got to start. I think you just got to take those risks and trust in God's grace and mercy. And when you make those mistakes, the only reason I think I'm more effective at ministry now is because I made so many mistakes and just trusted God that he would teach me and help me to learn from them. And I think just beginning.
Beautiful. Yeah, wonderful. Sam, how are you going?
I
remember at the moment.
Talking to a mentor about sharing the gospel. He said, obviously any youth minister who's worth their salt is going to start with the soul of the apostolate. And I'd been in youth ministry for about 5 years, and I had no idea what he was talking about. But the soul of the apostolate is a book, and it's a book that says all of our active ministry, all of the work we do with evangelization and discipleship, it always has to come from our own relationship with Jesus. Everything in the external world has to come from our interior life. And so I think in those moments of fear, in those moments of doubt and discouragement, it always has to come back to that relationship and the consolation we find in that relationship every day.
Sam, the idea of mentorship, how do you think that is, how important is it? I'm setting this up because I think it's extremely important. You can disagree if you'd like. How important is it, and how do we best do that?
Sam, you asked what's working. I think what's working is the same thing that was working for Jesus 2,000 years ago. He gave us the master plan of evangelization and discipleship and mentorship. When you asked us to think about, one person or one story of a life that's been changed, at least in my diocesan ministry, what that change has come out of is looking at the way that we were doing ministry and saying, I think we need to do a little bit less of, these flashy things that get a lot of recognition, and a little bit more of just journeying with people over days and weeks and years like Jesus did. And when we've started doing that with our young people, that's where the change is really happening.
Now, before we wrap up, any other fresh ideas? Anything you're working on, thinking about, mulling about, this is where we feel the Holy Spirit is leading? Father Rob.
I'll just say this, that many people see, they see me on a stage, they see the Ignite conference, and they see all of these lights, bright lights and all of this. But at the end of the day, the most innovative thing that we can do, again, is to come back, is to walk with these people. And things you don't see on camera is the crying on the shoulders, that the families, that the leaders that are volunteering today are the ones that Kim and Renee and everyone has to deal with day in and day out, loving them and walking with them and discipling them. So as much as I would say there are these flashy ideas, I think the greatest and the flashiest idea we can have is to realize that we are to, as Jesus did, to get onto our knees and wash the feet of our leaders, of our young people. This is what it's all about. And I'm sorry if we have sort of deceived you in thinking that this is youth ministry, but the youth ministry is literally washing the feet of the people, the crying, the day in, day out, the operations, the trying to paying the bills, this is where it all is. And I just want to commend you as leaders, all of you, for the day in, the day out, the work that people don't see. They're not the flashy ideas, but I think the greatest leadership is when we come back, as Sam, as you were saying, is come back to the heart of Jesus, and it's to wash the feet of our young people. If that's the craziest, that's the flashiest idea that I could ever come up with, and I want to go back to every day.
Can I say too, I think there is a space opening up, and we need to really jump into this for more collaborative ministry. I think traditionally that was sort of very territorial. You'd guard your patch.
Yeah.
But look, the church is getting limited in resources in the West, and so we've got to be wary of that. And also, there are a lot of gifts that we need to. This is where, again, community. Other people will bring something that we don't have and complement our weaknesses and our strengths, vice versa. But I'm seeing more of that. I think Ignite's a great model of this. And I think that requires humility and a bit of bravery and risk, you know. But there's something so important about collaborative ministry and the need to, I just think, different groups that are doing different things come together. And I think one of our greatest threats in that regard probably is fixating on the differences rather than seeing the much greater things that unite us in Christ. And that's a challenge. That's a real challenge. But and there are obviously conversations to be had in some areas. But I think one of the dangers I see is potentially splintering and fracturing into factions rather than utilising all of those various strengths. And the other thing too, I'd say, and just backing up what Father Rob was saying, is I think I don't think anybody should make the mistake of thinking that youth ministry is like a professional elite sort of class of experts. That's the danger. We've noticed this in our parish. People have been drawing back from being involved because they think, oh no, we've got paid experts. They'll do it. Right. We need to get that sense of missionary discipleship. Everyone has a part to play in the mission. This is where we started really, isn't it? You know?
Yeah. To each of our guests, thank you very much. And to everyone watching, thank you and God bless you.